A Second Chance at Love. Previous episodes are available in playlist, a link is given in the video description. Episode 90. Powerless to salvage things. Roxanne found something off about Madeline's claim of making a trip back to Zandania to visit her ancestors' graves. MDM. Xander isn't from Zandania in the first place, merely having gone there to work when she was young. What ancestors could the Xander family have there? With that said, Madeline couldn't possibly be visiting her biological father's ancestors' graves. After all, that piece of trash father of hers doesn't regard her as a daughter even now. Following that line of thought, she was convinced that her best friend was lying to her and had some other reason for going to Zandania. That aside, it must have something to do with that scumbag father of hers. When Lucian returned home, he swiftly informed his wife about the situation. He told her that Caden reported about Jonathan bringing along a great number of bodyguards when he accompanied Madeline to Zandania. At once, the couple started worrying. Is he planning to have a fight with someone that he brought so many bodyguards along? Thus, Roxanne quickly phoned her best friend. As soon as the call went through, she asked urgently, "Are you okay, Madeline? Did something serious happen? Don't hide it and keep me in the dark. Tell me, quick." Realizing that she would not be able to keep the truth from Roxanne, Madeline told her everything. As Roxanne listened, fury lined her features, and she gritted her teeth hard. "Stay calm, Roxanne. You must keep yourself in a good mood now that you're pregnant. We're all fine and are on our way back. However, we're not planning to take a flight this time. Jonathan said he'd bring us around for some fun while making the return trip." Madeline sounded relaxed, putting Roxanne at ease. All that notwithstanding, she had a new understanding of her best friend's piece of trash of a father, Norton, and his contemptible family. Good Lord! Forcibly taking MDM Xander away is already a crime. On top of that, they even had delusions of using Madeline as a pawn for a political marriage. How ridiculous! After hanging up the phone, Roxanne related the situation to Lucian. When Lucian had listened to it all, he wore a relaxed expression, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Jonathan has really seen the light. With this trip, not only has he secured his girlfriend, but he'd undoubtedly won his future mother-in-law over. Let's just wait to attend their wedding. Mulling it over, Roxanne felt that it indeed made sense. I'm still mad, Lucian. Norton Sheffield is a downright scumbag. Rage still blazed within her. I know of him. He's exceedingly barbaric in his tactics of doing business in Zandania. I reckon there's likely a problem with Southern Star Group that he's so desperate to force Madeline into a political marriage. In that case, I don't mind giving things a push." With that said, Lucian snagged his phone and gave Caden a call. "Investigate the condition of Southern Star Group in Zandania and teach their chairman, Mr. Sheffield, a hard lesson." "Understood." Caden answered, all too familiar with the tactics in doing so. In no time, he dug out a ton of problems with the company. There was a whole boatload of them. It turned out that Southern Star Group invested in mineral resources abroad in recent years, but all the projects failed. The company's debt ratio had also swelled to epic proportions. With just a prick, it would burst like a balloon. In fact, it had even violated the law in many ways previously, such as its real estate companies acquiring land by illegal means and its mineral processing plants causing severe damage to the environment. In the face of all that, Lucian ordered, "Leak everything out." Needless to say, an empty company worth nothing much in market value could not withstand such scandals. Hence, Southern Star Group's shares would certainly plummet for several days in a row until the company became insolvent. Consequently, the various banks and creditors would definitely come knocking at the door to collect the debts in a mad frenzy. At that time, Norton would be powerless to salvage things. He is done for. Meanwhile, at the Sheffield residence, Wilmer's Porsche pulled up at the entrance. As Wilmer stepped out of the car, he adjusted his clothes before walking into the living room in a composed manner. He had seen a photo of Madeline. Ever since that first sight, he had been unable to get her off his mind. Her exquisite features seemed to be out of this world. Thus, even though Wilmer knew that Norton had arranged this marriage of convenience to save Southern Star Group from imminent danger, he was willing to go through with his proposal. In fact, he had even convinced his father Jensen to allow him to get married. After all, in Wilmer's mind, it was natural to give up a little bit of money to court and win over a belle. However, what awaited Wilmer was Norton's dejected expression and Mildred's dark gaze. "Mr. Sheffield, hasn't Madeline returned?" Wilmer frowned, evidently displeased with the situation. Norton raised his head to look at Wilmer, not knowing what to say. Just as he was about to explain the situation by blaming Madeline's disobedience, Mildred shot up from her seat in fury at that exact moment. Gritting her teeth, she seethed, "Mr. Wilmer, you're way too good for Madeline. Never would we have imagined that she has gotten a boyfriend behind our back and has now even gotten herself pregnant. We're enraged beyond words. Just before you arrived, her dad had gotten into a huge argument with her." Mildred sighed in exasperation. "Oh, I can't believe this." Wilmer blinked, dumbfounded. For a second, words eluded him. The next moment, a look of disgust filled his eyes. He had been expecting a morally upright woman. "Fine. Since that's the case, this whole ordeal cannot be carried forward. Goodbye, Mr. Sheffield." Wilmer was burning with rage as he turned around and walked away impatiently. Norton's lips quivered, but no words came out. If he were to be truthful, he had to admit that vilifying Madeline's morality would immediately make the Cheever family back down from the deal. Mildred's approach was better than his plan to provide the Cheevers with endless explanations. If that were to happen, he might very well offend the Cheever family instead. In the end, he turned to look at Mildred with a crestfallen expression. "Darling, can your side of the family still lend us some money? We just need about 100 million to be able to redeem the mineral resources abroad. By then, we can continue to develop the area and get through this difficult time." Instantly, Mildred shrieked like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, "Norton, where would my family still have the money? We've given what we can to you a long time ago, and didn't that result in a severe loss as well? If you ask me, since your daughter has gotten entangled with the Queen family of Horrington, you should consider asking the Queen family for help. See if they can at least help patch up some holes in this sinking ship." Norton was rendered speechless. He threw Mildred a look of exasperation. All the while, Mildred and her two daughters had been bullying Lorraine and Madeline. Not to mention that they had practically kidnapped Madeline back to Zandania that time around. How could they hope that his future son-in-law Jonathan would help them? They should be grateful that Jonathan had not turned hostile and sought revenge. Just as Norton was lost in thought, his phone suddenly rang. It was a call from the secretary of the board of directors. "Mr. Sheffield, there's terrible news. Our company's shares are plummeting as we speak." What on earth had happened? Do you know anything about it? The board of directors is hoping that you can show up immediately for a meeting. Norton froze on the spot. Alas, one attracts what one fears. Mildred was still going on, nagging relentlessly beside him. All of a sudden, Norton exploded. "Shut up!" Taken by surprise, Mildred stared at him in shock before roaring, "Why are you shouting? What's the use of you shouting at me?" Norton no longer wanted to talk to her. Getting up from his seat, he got ready to go to the office. However, before he could leave the house, a series of cars drove into the compound. Upon closer inspection, Norton realized that those were all people he knew. Among them was a manager of a bank which Southern Star Group had taken a $500 million loan from. He had been postponing the payment again and again. Another was a person in charge of a private funds group. With a look of fury written on his face, he dashed to the living room the moment he stepped out of the car. Following suit were many contractors. All of them looked unfriendly as they marched toward Norton. "Mr. Sheffield, we can't tolerate it any longer. You're a big shot. Shouldn't you be able to settle a small debt of a few million? Mr. Sheffield, the upper management is beginning to take action. If the numbers don't tally, I will lose my job. Please be merciful and pay up the $500 million that you owe. Norton Sheffield, Southern Star Group is done for. What are we going to do now? I demand you to give me an answer." That day, the gate of Norton's mansion was broken into by countless people. Shocked out of her wits, Mildred hurried upstairs and locked the door. Making arrangements, Jonathan and Madeline were completely clueless about Lucian's harsh punishments against Norton. The sun was already setting. A Rolls-Royce was on the road, heading to Horrington from Zandania. More specifically, Jonathan had slowed down the car after they had passed the outskirts of the city to enjoy the beautiful and unique scenery. "Where do you get this car, Jonathan? Doesn't this car belong to the person in charge of the hotel?" Lorraine was overjoyed to see how much in love Madeline and Jonathan were. Jonathan shook his head in response. "MDM. Xander, this car doesn't belong to the person in charge. The car is specially provided by the company for the hotel to welcome distinguished guests. Thus, I've requested to borrow it for a few days. Once we arrive at Horrington, I'll ask someone to return the car." "I see. Well, that's splendid. This car can make Mildred know her place in an instant. I assume the car is extremely expensive." Lorraine had never sat in a Rolls-Royce before, even though Norton had one in the past. Despite that, Lorraine had always refused to sit in it. After all, she knew the car was Mildred's dowry. "Mom, this car is, in fact, expensive. The price can go up to a few million. However, it wouldn't be difficult for Jonathan to buy one if he wanted to, but there's no need for that at the moment." Madeline sighed inwardly. It looks like Mom knows nothing about the assets of the Queen family. Jonathan merely smiled as he explained, MDM. Xander, you can find cars like this in my house too. In fact, some of them cost more than the one I'm driving now. I've driven them when I was younger, but I don't drive as much anymore. If you like this car, I can assign a driver to drive the one at home and make it your personal transport. Jonathan's words made Lorraine beam in excitement. She was feeling utterly spoiled. Meanwhile, Madeline looked at Jonathan from the corner of her eyes, impressed by his tactics to win his future mother-in-law over. Warmth filled her heart as she smiled. The car came to a stop at a rest area. Stepping out of the car, Jonathan went in search of some food and warm water for the mother-daughter pair to have on the road. Seeing that, both Lorraine and Madeline were touched by his thoughtfulness. When Jonathan returned to the car, Lorraine began discussing the matters of marriage. She wanted to know if the Queen family had any other requests from her end. Mom, don't you think you're thinking too far ahead? Jonathan and I have just started dating a few days ago. We just want to go dating and have fun now. Madeline rolled her eyes at Lorraine as a blush crept up her face. To her surprise, Lorraine gave her a warning look. Do you know how old you are now? You can go on your sweet dates after you got married. Moreover, Jonathan's family is a famous prestigious family in Horrington. You should be worried about whether or not you are a good fit. My gosh! What kind of mother would berate her own daughter like that? Madeline pouted before turning to Jonathan. Acting coy, she blinked innocently before asking, Jonathan, tell me. Do you think I'm a good fit? Jonathan chuckled before nodding fervently. Of course. You're a terrific fit. He then smiled at Lorraine. MDM. Xander, don't worry. There isn't any rule in my house. Everyone's just waiting for me to get married soon. Okay. Then when we return, can you arrange a meet-up between me and your parents? Would that be all right? Lorraine seemed to be anxious. It was as though she was worried that her daughter would never get married. Sure. When we got back, I'll ask my folks to have a chat with you. My parents are really easy to get along with. Jonathan did not hesitate to give a firm answer. Upon hearing that, Madeline did not make another noise. Her heart was racing in her chest. It didn't seem too bad of an idea for Lorraine to speed up the process and send them straight to the altar. From the corner of her eyes, Madeline peeped at Jonathan's handsome side profile. A surge of sweetness filled her heart. Jonathan seemed to feel it too. Turning his head slightly, he met her eyes with a look of warm affection. Oh, that's right. MDM. Xander, we have to make a stop at the town in front. I heard that the scenery there is breathtaking. We'll reserve 2 hotel rooms to stay in. What do you think? Jonathan asked in a gentle tone. Lorraine nodded instantly. No problem. What for? As Jonathan and Madeline had already gone on their honeymoon, Roxanne began planning in her head for her honeymoon trip with Jonathan. It was almost winter holiday, so the children were free as well. Furthermore, she had yet to reach the stage where her pregnancy was obvious, so she could still freely move around. Hence, Roxanne began picking the destinations for the trip. Lucian agreed to it. He felt that it was time for him to reward himself after working hard for Farewell Group for so many years. Of course, he said those words on purpose before Elias. After all, Elias left the mess to his son so that he could enjoy his own life before he even reached 40. It seemed like he was confident that Lucian would be able to handle the company well. Sonia then chimed in, suggesting family-friendly places. Right then, Elias burst everyone's bubble. Roxanne, I don't think it's a good idea to go anywhere now. After all, Grant's condition has not stabilized yet. Roxanne froze. The mention of that man brought a bitter smile onto her face. For dozens of years, Grant had never given her even 1 second of attention. It was as if she was dead to him. Naturally, it would not be her habit to think about him. I'll continue performing acupuncture for him today before taking him to the hospital for a checkup. I'd like to find out how the tumor is, Roxanne muttered. Sonia and Elias nodded. Lucian started consoling his wife. Regardless of everything, we'll send him off. Consider this as us being kind. 2 rooms would be just nice. You and Maddie can take one while I take the other. When he heard that, Jonathan was taken aback. He had intended for Madeline to share a room with Lorraine. He did not expect Lorraine to make such an arrangement. Madeline's face turned a bright shade of red. She immediately protested, "Mom, what are you talking about? I'll be sleeping in your room. We always go on holiday some other time in the future." "All right. We'll go on a family trip by then. I'm sure we'll have an easier time taking care of the children with Mom and Dad with us," Roxanne said as she turned to Sonia with a smile. Sonia was not expecting to hear that from her, and a smile manifested on her lips in pleasant surprise. Then, she bobbed her head and answered, "Sure. I'll help with the children with Elias." That afternoon, Roxanne and Lucian went back to the Farewell main residence. They asked the housekeeper about Grant's recent condition, and it seemed like he was mostly fine. He had a routine for his meals and sleep. Although there were times when his gastritis would flare up, his medicine could keep it under control. When Roxanne entered the room, something on the wall caught her attention and made her snap her head upward. It was a large wedding photo of Grant and her mother. Evidently, the photo was a new print, for the colors were vibrant. Roxanne's mother was smiling sweetly in the photo. Maybe she thought she was the most blessed woman in the world at that time, Roxanne mused. Who would have known that the man who promised to spend the rest of his life with her would betray her? She cried so much that her tears went dry. Then, she was so sad that she broke down. Roxanne stared at the photo for a long time before resentment swelled in her chest. She turned to look at Grant. Grant seemed dazed as he stared right at the photo. Then, a look of pain crossed his face, and tears welled up in his eyes. "Roxanne, I'm sorry. I've made a mistake. A grave mistake. I was too ambitious that I lost everything in the end. I've wronged your mother, and I owe her so much. I wish I could die faster so that I could apologize to her in the afterlife," Grant cried out before dissolving into tears as he broke down. His words and his cries made Roxanne feel so uncomfortable that she retreated from the room. She wanted to recompose herself too, or else she would not be able to treat Grant either. "Really want to go with you?" After recollecting herself, Roxanne began performing acupuncture on Grant. Soon, Grant slowly calmed down, but he did not dare to lift his head to look at his daughter. However, his complexion looked better than before. The waxy pallor had gone away, but he was still yellower than the average person. "We'll go to the hospital for a checkup today," Roxanne told him in a soft voice. Nevertheless, she did not wait for Grant's response before leaving the room and asking the housekeeper to make preparations for the trip. Lucian walked over to his wife's side and held her hand. With a nod and a smile, he said, "You've done everything you could. The luckiest thing in his life is that he has you as a daughter." A wry smile crept onto Roxanne's face. "Maybe. But the unluckiest thing in my life is that I have a father like him." After the preparations, Lucian and Roxanne drove Grant to the hospital. The tests took a long time, but Roxanne did not need to worry about it. Madeline's leave was long, so Roxanne had asked Linda to temporarily help manage some of Madeline's work. The housekeepers walked over cautiously and whispered to Roxanne, "Mrs. Farwell, your father has been crying these few days. He kept apologizing to the photo." Roxanne curled her lips into a mocking smile. "Is that so? Well, you just need to do your job and ignore him. What's the use of regret and apologies when you're on the verge of death? My mother won't come back to life. Regardless of whether you re sincere or not, do you think you have another chance at this? You don't. The destruction you've brought to this family will always be here until the end of time." Linda had arranged one test after another without wasting much time. 2 hours later, the results were out. Linda even held a meeting with the various doctors to come up with a summary report. She then informed Roxanne, "Dr. Jarvis, the doctors of various departments have come to the conclusion that the tumor in Mr. Jarvis' stomach has stabilized and is even showing signs of shrinking. The cancer cells that have spread to other places are showing signs of stabilizing as well. Hence, the doctors hypothesized that he has another 3 more months to live." A sorrowful look flitted across Linda's face once she was done telling Roxanne about that, and she added, "I am sorry, Dr. Jarvis. He has 3 extra months to live." "Roxanne, your treatment is working," Lucian said, patting Roxanne's shoulder. "Not bad. He's lucky to have so many days left to live," Roxanne muttered in a flat tone. No one could tell whether she was happy or sad. Linda thought that Roxanne and Lucian would be devastated, but it seemed like they were not, so it would be better for her to keep quiet. The doctors did not prescribe Grant any medicine after his tests. They all knew that Grant only have that much time to live because Roxanne was fighting against the Grim Reaper for him with her treatment. After exiting the hospital, Lucian told Grant the results of his tests. He seemed to have fallen deep in his thoughts when he heard that he had more days to live, but Lucian could not figure out what he was thinking about. A long while later, Grant finally said, "Lucian, Roxanne, can you take me to the cemetery? I'd like to visit her." Roxanne, who was in the front passenger seat, turned to glance at Grant. "Okay, we'll bring you there," Lucian swiftly replied. Grant's action would bring some meaning to Roxanne's treatment. When they reached the cemetery, the sky abruptly darkened, and raindrops began falling. Roxanne and Lucian both stood at the entrance of the cemetery as they watched Grant slowly move his way up the stairs until he reached Roxanne's mother's grave. Upon seeing his first wife's photo on the gravestone, Grant froze and stared at her face for a long while. Heirloom. At a mansion in the suburbs of Harrington, Winnie received a call from Grant. She was shocked to learn that he had cancer and was facing imminent death. Upon hearing the news, Winnie paused for a moment before responding coldly, "You reap what you sow, Grant. You deserve it." After a brief silence, Grant calmly asked, "Winnie, I only called to ask for one thing. Do you remember the heirloom that belonged to Roxanne's mother? Please return it to me so that I can give it to Roxanne." Winnie's eyes blazed with anger as she bellowed, "What nonsense are you talking about? I have never taken it." Her son, Yosef, who had heavy dark circles under his eyes, kept yawning and asking, "Mom, who's on the phone?" "Your dad," she snapped. Grant's voice lowered a few notches. "Winnie, I'm dying. I hope you still have a little bit of conscience. Return the heirloom, and we're even." "Listen up, Grant. I didn't take it. I did want to take it back then. We searched the whole house, but we couldn't find it. It's up to you to believe it or not. Don't call me again in the future." Winnie hung up the phone before Grant could respond. Yosef was unfazed by her furious expression and instead prodded, "Mom, hurry up and cook." Finally, he pulled the hem of his shirt and began wiping the gravestone, his tears rolling down his cheeks. He mumbled under his breath, "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Please take me with you. I really want to leave with you now. Please forgive me." Lucian held Roxanne's hand and guided her back into the car. After over an hour, Grant finally trudged out of the cemetery. By then, he was soaked from head to toe. His eyes were dull as if he had left his soul behind at the grave. He did not speak even after getting into the car. Feeling annoyed by her son's listless state, Winnie could not help but chide, "Yosef, you need to get a job. You come home late and leave early every day. Besides, your gambling addiction is out of control. Don't you care about your family?" Frowning, the man glared at his mother and retorted, "Why should I care? We're getting divorced because I'm not good enough for her. Therefore, I deserve to be ill-treated. Besides, I can't find a job anywhere because Grant has been blacklisted. What have I done to deserve this?" After speaking, Yosef went to the kitchen to look for something to eat, leaving Winnie in the living room, still in shock. Fortunately, her daughter had married a wealthy businessman, which was why they could afford to live in this mansion. In contrast, both her son and her husband were useless. Meanwhile, at the Jarvis residence, Grant calmly analyzed the situation after the call ended. Roxanne and Lucian were waiting quietly beside him. Grant had informed them that Roxanne's mother had left an heirloom, which he suspected may have been stolen by Winnie. This was the reason for his earlier call. "Dad, maybe Winnie sold it long ago," Lucian said, thinking that was the most likely possibility. Despite being composed all this time, Roxanne's curiosity was piqued upon learning that the missing item was her mother's precious heirloom, and she couldn't help but wonder what it was. Grant shook his head, denying Lucian's speculation. "Not very likely. If Winnie took it, she wouldn't have denied it just now," he replied with a frown. "So, what exactly is in my mother's heirloom? Is it very valuable?" "Winnie is even more despicable than I thought. She even wants to take possession of the heirloom." Roxanne said agitatedly. Lucian reassured, "Don't worry, I'm sure Mom's heirloom must still be in this old house. Since Winnie didn't steal it, we just need to search for it properly, and we might just find it." Grant nodded in agreement. "Roxanne, we will search thoroughly and hand the item over to you once it is found." Her birthday. Upon returning to the Farwell residence, Elias and Sonia asked about Grant's condition. Seeing that his wife looked exhausted, Lucian asked her to go upstairs and rest. He then informed the rest about Grant's condition. "He's fine. Roxanne's medical skills are truly amazing. The hospital said that Grant only had half a month to live, but he can now live for 3 months after her treatment." Elias was awed by Roxanne's skills. Sonia, however, had a more indifferent reaction. "People like Grant don't deserve to live that long. Fortunately, he has such a capable daughter, but he has never treated her well." Before Elias left for the school to pick up the children, Lucian instructed the couple not to mention the life and death issues in front of the children. When the children returned, they all wanted to talk to their mother. Lucian quickly persuaded them, "Your mommy is a little tired today. Let her rest for a while." The 3 little ones nodded obediently and promised to behave. After sleeping for over an hour, Roxanne woke up feeling much more energetic. It was normal to feel sleepy in the early stages of pregnancy. As soon as she walked out of the room, the children rushed out, smiling. "Mommy, you're awake." The sight of their happy faces lifted Roxanne's spirits. "Mommy, I have a gift for you." Estella kissed her mother and ran into her room. When she came out, she had a very exquisitely knitted scarf in her hand. When Roxanne crouched down to hug her daughter, she immediately wrapped the scarf lightly around her mother's neck. After tidying it up, she asked expectantly, "Mommy, is it comfortable? Do you feel warm?" "Essie is really brilliant. The pattern on this scarf is really beautiful. It's no wonder she's a little genius in design. The scarf is fluffy and soft, it really suits me." "Thank you so much." Roxanne never hesitated to praise her children. The little girl smiled brightly and gave her 2 older brothers a knowing eye gesture as if she had won something. As soon as Archie and Benny saw her reaction, they felt that their gifts to their mother might lose out. "Mommy, I have something for you too." "Me too, Mommy. It's going to get cold soon. Look what I prepared for you." The 2 boys also rushed into the room and then took out the gifts they had prepared. Their actions puzzled Roxanne a little, and she wondered if there was a special occasion. After all, her children were vying to give her gifts. And then it hit her. Today is my birthday. She had almost forgotten it. Her birthday was right after the beginning of winter. Archie gave Roxanne an emerald necklace. "Mommy, this is a piece of emerald that I found in the market. It has a history of several hundred years, but unfortunately, the shopkeeper didn't know its value. I bought it at a discount and then polished it myself." With tender eyes, Roxanne received the necklace from Archie and felt its warm and cool touch. Even though the color was not as pure as that of an emerald, it was expertly polished to a smooth finish, revealing Archie's attentive nature. She immediately leaned down and kissed her son. "Mommy really likes this gift. And me, and me. Mommy, I also have a gift." Benny was very anxious and immediately opened the gift box in his hand. Roxanne continued to smile brightly. Her eyes lit up when she saw Benny's gift. It was an exquisitely crafted wooden sculpture, which was very delicate and hyper-realistic. "Mommy, I bought this from the wood market. This is a kind of wood that has been submerged in water all year round. I could only make it this small because I only bought a small piece." The wooden sculpture was a goddess statue. Roxanne looked at it and praised Benny's craftsmanship. "It's amazing. Mommy likes it too. I didn't expect you to be so thoughtful." A star for Mommy. When Lucian heard the children's laughter, he shouted from the living room downstairs, "It's my turn, darling. Come down quickly." Roxanne's face lit up with a smile of contentment as she descended the stairs, accompanied by the three little ones. She clearly remembered Lucian had chosen to spend time with Aubrey on her birthday many years ago. "Let's see what gift he has prepared for me today. If his gift is incomparable to the children, I'll have to bring up old grievances." As they made their way downstairs, they didn't get a chance to see where Lucian was before all the lights in the hall suddenly went out. "Why is he using the same trick? He did this when he proposed to me last time," Roxanne muttered to herself as she retained her calm composure. The children weren't worried either, as they had already rehearsed this with their dad. Suddenly, the sky was illuminated by a brilliant galaxy of stars, covering everything in sight. The hall was also lit up. Roxanne and the children lifted their heads, looking at the magnificent Milky Way and the sparkling stars and ever-changing nebulae. The sight was so breathtakingly beautiful. It felt incredibly realistic, as if they were floating through the galaxy, traveling through the stars. The scene changed, and suddenly they saw the blue planet receding from human civilization as they flew further and further away. After that, she praised the three little ones. "Mommy likes all the birthday gifts you prepared. Thank you so much." However, she couldn't help but feel nervous. "What should I prepare for my children's birthdays? Where can I find meaningful gifts? I'm under a lot of pressure being their mom." They could see the gorgeous planet covered by blue sea water, and many famous landmarks in the country were still visible at first. As they flew further away, Chania gradually shrank into the distance. "Wow! It's so realistic. It's really amazing. The galaxy is so beautiful. The feeling of traveling through the universe is really fantastic." The three little ones exclaimed in amazement, and the view of the sky changed again. They could recognize the 8 planets orbiting around Earth and pointed them out one by one. Mercury, Jupiter, Mars, Saturn. Estella pointed to Pluto, which unfortunately had been demoted from a planet. Although Roxanne wasn't as excited as the children, she still felt like she was in a dream. But she was still waiting. "Where's Lucian's gift?" As the scene changed continuously, the children exclaimed, "Mommy, we are heading toward the moon. That's our moon. Hey, there's someone on the moon. Oh wow, Daddy is on the moon. How did he do that?" The children's surprised voices caught Roxanne's attention. She looked over and was stunned by what she saw. Indeed, from a distance, someone was standing on the moon's surface. Upon closer look, the person seemed like Lucian. "It's fake, it's all fake. This isn't real. Lucian must have used image technology to project his image into the universe." But the more Roxanne looked, the more she felt it was real. Step by step, Lucian's figure approached Roxanne and the children. They could even see the gentle smile on his face and the affectionate expression in his eyes. Roxanne was completely stunned. He held a rose in his right hand and an exquisite box in his left. Finally, Lucian's figure suddenly flew out of the moon and floated toward her. Soon, the cosmic starry sky in the hall dimmed slightly, and everything began to return to reality. Countless sparkling stars converged on Lucian and he slowly descended from the sky to the hall. Wow! Daddy came back from the moon. Daddy is so cool. He picked stars for Mommy in the sky. Television dramas don't lie. Daddy can even the stars from the sky and give them to Mommy. Just come to me, happy birthday, darling. Lucian's eyes were deep with affection as he presented a rose to Roxanne. Next, he opened the gift box, revealing its contents. It was a dazzling gemstone enveloped in a gentle blue glow. It looked just like a star. Wow, what a beautiful gemstone! Daddy, this looks like the material used for the Asturian star. Asturian star is located at Maranta. How did you manage to find something similar, Daddy? It is very hard to come by. Mommy, the gemstone is beautiful. Hearing the children's professional comments, Roxanne could somewhat guess that her husband must have put in a lot of effort to get this gemstone. Feeling a wave of sweetness in her heart, she picked up the gemstone and rewarded her husband with a kiss. Thank you, honey. As soon as she spoke, the lights in the hall came back on and the birthday song began to play. Roxanne believed a professional singer had been hired as the singer sang with such a melodious voice. But as she turned around, she was surprised to find that it was her mother-in-law, Sonia, who was singing. Roxanne was pleasantly surprised by her mother-in-law's unexpected talent. Soon, the housekeepers appeared and joined in the singing, each with a genuine smile on their face. Finally, Elias pushed a trolley with a 7-layer cake to everyone's amazement. The children jumped around, singing and drooling over the cake. Lucian, dressed in a special gentleman's tailcoat and holding flowers and gifts, landed in front of Roxanne like an angel. The woman sighed inwardly at this romantic gesture. Oh, well. He won. It is so romantic. Each layer of the 7-tiered cake was crafted with unique ingredients, resulting in a vibrant and visually stunning array of colors. Roxanne was getting all emotional. All these years, her birthdays were never taken seriously and there was hardly anyone around who could remember her special day. It was only after she had children that her birthdays became somewhat decent, as she would have a cake with her children and listen to their well wishes. This year was the grandest birthday celebration she had ever experienced in her life. Her eyes suddenly became moist, but she suppressed the sentimentality and returned to a happy mood for the cake cutting. She first gave slices of the cake to the children, then to her father-in-law and mother-in-law, and proceeded to distribute it to the housekeepers one by one. Amidst the sounds of laughter and joy, Roxanne did not drink any alcohol but felt intoxicated nonetheless. She only hoped that she could continue to have days like this. Madeline had planned to take a week off, thinking it would be enough time to enjoy their journey to Horrington. However, things didn't go as planned, and after 7 days, they had only traveled half the distance. It was all because there were too many scenic spots along Zandania. Since it was the low tourist season, There weren't many people at the scenic spots, so they had more time to travel around. Therefore, Jonathan planned several more destinations for sightseeing. On the way, Madeline saw how considerate Jonathan was toward his future mother-in-law. He was attentive to every detail and discussed every aspect of their wedding with her mother. At night, when they stayed in a hotel, she constantly urged Madeline to sleep in the same room as Jonathan. However, Madeline was reluctant to do so, even though she had already prepared herself mentally for it. Every time they slept in the same room, he was extremely gentlemanly and polite, even insisting on getting an extra bed for her. Self-numbing upon opening the door, Jonathan flashed a smile. "Did you get kicked out by MDM? Xander again?" "Yeah. She snores too loudly anyway, and I can never get used to it." Madeline cooked up an excuse as she walked in with her pillows in her arms. She noticed that Jonathan's laptop was still switched on, indicating that he was still working. At that sight, Madeline suddenly felt sorry for him. He must be exhausted. Not only does he have to plan out our travel itinerary in the morning, taking great care in showing us where the good food was and where to have fun. On top of that, he still had to deal with tons of work affairs at night. After entering the room, she sized up her surroundings and realized that the space didn't seem like it had anybody staying in. Everything was clean and tidy. She took a glance at the refrigerator, and sure enough, her assumption was right. The drinks inside had been neatly arranged by Jonathan. Isn't this obsessive-compulsive behavior? Madeline knew that such behavior was actually a different kind of torment for oneself. Picked and rearranged the positions of all the bottles within. He respected her to the T. Madeline almost wanted to tell him that he didn't need to be so careful. However, he seemed to be more conservative than she was. She probably had to wait until their wedding night for things to happen. But the scent he emitted after taking a shower was too alluring for Madeline to resist. Every night, her mind was filled with wild thoughts as she watched the man bathe. It was rather challenging for her to control her desire. That night, Madeline was once again forced out of their room by her mother. She could only ring the doorbell of the room opposite with a helpless look on her face, holding a pillow in her hand. Then, she chose a bottle of fruit wine with an unknown brand before taking a peek at Jonathan, trying to see how he would react. Usually, individuals with severe obsessive-compulsive disorder would become agitated when others disrupt their arrangements and plans. However, Jonathan simply smiled at her as if relieved. Seeing that, Madeline said, "Jonathan, I may be your girlfriend now, but I am also a doctor. As such, I can't help but advise you to stop working so hard in the future. I can help you with the travel itinerary, and I hope you can stop being so tense all the time, okay?" Although she didn't mention anything about the disorder, she reckoned she had given him enough hints. She was worried that if Jonathan returned to his work mode, he would have a relapse of the depression he had suffered due to excessive stress previously. With a serious expression, Jonathan replied, "I know, Maddie. I understand your concern and intentions. Apart from that, I also know you're the only one who could heal me." His words made Madeline's face flush, her heart raced, and she felt flustered. It seemed that sometimes, a sincere comment could become the sultriest of words. All of a sudden, Madeline didn't dare to look into Jonathan's eyes for fear of getting caught in those dark pools of his and triggering her impulses. Subsequently, she opened the bottle of wine and took out some glasses. The bottle of wine was just enough to fill 2 glasses. She took the glass and walked over to Jonathan's side before handing it to him. Sometimes, a little bit of wine can help relax the mind. Don't always push yourself too hard. The reason why Madeline was drinking was so that she could sleep better. Otherwise, she thought that the sound of running water from Jonathan's shower later would make her imagination run wild. You're right. Let's drink together, then. Jonathan lifted his wine glass. His smile became even more alluring in Madeline's eyes. She turned her head away as she wondered if the man was deliberately teasing her. After clinking their glasses gently, both of them took a sip and started chatting aimlessly. They talked about the sceneries they saw, some matters related to their work, and shared some interesting anecdotes from the past. Madeline couldn't help but feel at peace being with him. Soon, they finished their wine, and Madeline turned around to fetch another bottle. "This wine is sweet and the taste is really good," Madeline commented, unaware that the seemingly refreshing wine actually contained a high alcohol content. However, it appeared that the effect of alcohol hadn't hit her at that moment. A dream. As they downed one glass after another, the two soon found themselves enjoying their chatting session more and more. Before they knew it, they had finished all the drinks in the refrigerator. Lowering her gaze, Madeline realized there were already 7 or 8 empty bottles on the table. She uttered, "Jonathan, I hope you can get rid of the habit of forcing yourself and stop setting overly strong goals in whatever you do. You'll only suffer if you keep going on like this, and I don't want to see you fall into depression again." The one good thing about alcohol was that it could help one to express themselves more freely, and what Madeline did was exactly that. She spoke from the bottom of her heart and sincerely hoped that Jonathan could be happier. Jonathan nodded and raised his gaze, only to find that the woman's face was flushed. It was obvious she could not handle the after effects of the alcohol. He got to his feet and leaned toward Madeline before holding her hand. He then said in a gentle voice, "Let's not drink too much. We still have a whole day of fun tomorrow, after all. Here, I'll help you lie down and get some rest, okay?" Drawn in by his handsome face and mesmerizing eyes, the sudden closeness triggered something in Madeline, and she stood on her tiptoes before planting a firm kiss on the man's lips. Jonathan was taken aback for a moment but quickly responded to the kiss with equal fervor, his senses awakened by the sudden turn of events. The intensity of their kiss escalated, with Jonathan unleashing a fierce assault that left Madeline dizzy with desire, making her feel as though every pore of her body was emanating heat. It wasn't long before her breathing grew heavier, and she couldn't help but let out a soft moan as she lost herself completely in the moment. Just when everything was getting even more heated, however, Jonathan suddenly stopped. He proceeded to scoop Madeline into his arms before placing her down gently on the bed. "I love you, Maddie. Now go to sleep." Jonathan gave her forehead a light peck. Madeline was hit by another wave of dizziness, and she felt as if the world was spinning. It was then she realized she was actually drunk. Her mind started to feel hazy as if it were drifting into nothingness. After some time, her sleepiness took over and she eventually drifted off to sleep. Jonathan's eyes were shining with affection, and a faint smile spread across his lips as he watched her fall into slumber. Although he had no idea if he was in a healthy state now, or if there would be any unexpected situations happening in the future, the one thing he was sure of was that he didn't want to see Madeline sad. "I'm not mentally prepared yet. If I were to get together with her so easily, it would make it seem like I'm not really serious about her. I guess the time is not ripe yet, hey?" With that thought in mind, he returned to his desk and finished handling the remaining tasks. About an hour later, he stretched his body and closed his laptop. Turning to look at the woman who was still sleeping peacefully on the bed, he couldn't help but feel a sense of contentment in his heart. After taking out a set of clothes from his luggage, Jonathan went into the bathroom and prepared to take a bath. Meanwhile, Madeline, who was still deep in slumber, woke up in her dreams feeling parched. She immediately started looking for water and ran through the forest until she reached a waterfall. As the thirst overtook her, she quickly lowered herself to drink from the clear lake below the waterfall, gulping down the water eagerly. However, the more she drank, the thirstier she became, and she felt extremely hot all over. Unsure of what was happening, she glanced around and saw that she was surrounded by lush green grass and colorful flowers. Apart from that, the air was filled with a sweet fragrance. Soon after, she noticed that her soul was soaring. Fluffy white clouds were falling from the sky, enveloping her in a gentle embrace. How crazy was I at the break of dawn? The smart curtains drew themselves open automatically, allowing the rays of the morning sun to illuminate the room. The glorious light allowed Jonathan to stare intently at the figure sleeping soundly beside him. Her dainty nose, luscious lips, and tremoring eyelashes made for a captivating sight. He had never expected the sudden turn of events from the night before. He was still showering when the bathroom door was opened abruptly. It was impossible to tell at that moment whether Madeline was drunk or conscious. Yet, Jonathan had no escape. The lust he was harboring was ignited by her sudden presence. Amidst the sound of flowing water, their bodies were entwined together for an indeterminate amount of time. Now that he was fully awake, the scenes from a few hours ago were seared into Jonathan's mind, causing a sudden urge to fill him again. By then, Madeline was already awake. She was wondering if the events from the previous night were a dream or reality. Nevertheless, the sleeping robe she was wearing clearly indicated that it was the latter. As she was in her own pajamas when she left her mother's room, she figured that it must have been drenched and left on the bathroom floor. In other words, he had slept with her while she was drunk the night before. The thought suddenly triggered a cheeky smile across her face, but it was quickly replaced by overwhelming embarrassment. Right beside her ear, she could hear the gentle sound of Jonathan's breath, while her body could clearly feel the warmth he emitted. Despite the overwhelming lust within her, she knew that she had to suppress it desperately. Cannot embarrass myself again. Feeling as though she was at the top of the clouds, the gentle breeze brushing past her ear made every inch and every pore of her skin tingle. Fortunately for her, Jonathan leaned in to kiss her with his burning lips, unwittingly giving her the perfect excuse. Closing her eyes, she let herself go by reciprocating his advances. Initially, Jonathan was planning to save himself until the time was right, but Madeline had clearly foiled his plan. After having his first taste, he realized he could no longer control himself. Taking her response as encouragement for him to continue, he swiftly wrapped his arms around her. A passionate session quickly followed. By the time both of them were awake again, it was already close to 12 noon. "Maddie, Jonathan, are both of you awake?" Lorraine's voice rang out from outside the door. As if they knew what the other was thinking, both of them jumped out of bed and quickly put on their clothes. Thereafter, Madeline ordered softly, "I'll get the door while you pretend to be asleep." "No, it looks more natural if I go." "Since you have a habit of getting up late, it's better if you're the one who's sleeping," Jonathan rebutted. Both of them exchanged glances before breaking into smiles. Now that they were adults, it wasn't necessary for them to hide their actions. As a result, both of them opened the room door together. The awkward look on their faces and the fact that they had fooled around for a few hours more than usual brought a hardened smile to Lorraine's face. Nonetheless, she kept her thoughts to herself and flatly suggested, "I found a local restaurant that's good. Let's head there together." "Sure, MDM. Xander." Jonathan agreed with a nod. When Madeline turned around to look, her eyes widened in shock. She quickly moved her body to block the view of his neck, which was covered with hickeys. "Oh my God! I must have gone wild last night." Jonathan didn't realize the fact until he saw himself in the mirror while washing up. Upon noticing the residual marks she left behind, he gave her the side eye, sending her into a panic that he found adorable. Audited by senior management within half a month, Colby had proved that he was more capable than Linda. He gained the latter's recognition and she became his assistant. After all, he was the only person who could strike a perfect balance between the commercial needs of a business and the technical complexities of their research. That was James' evaluation of him as Flora Verba Group's CEO. As the company obtained its products from the Research Institute, Colby was the best person to serve as the bridge between the two companies. At the same time, he could supervise the production of many low-cost medicines, benefiting a bigger pool of patients. As Flora Verba Group released new products into the market at a rapid pace, Colby would approach the medical insurance companies proactively. His actions drew Peregrine's admiration, causing the latter to feel that he was a good candidate to succeed Roxanne. On that day, an international flight landed at Horrington Airport. A slender-looking woman, dressed in a suit and high heels, strode confidently out of the terminal. Behind her was a group of more than 20 men, all dressed in sharp black suits. Some were Epian, while others were Aplathians. Their ages were spread across both ends of the spectrum. The oldest ones looked to be in their 40s or 50s while the youngest ones were in their early 20s. The entire group exuded a glamorous air and turned many heads at the airport. Those in the know could immediately identify them as an international business negotiation delegation. The intimidating air they exuded was to cow their opponents into submission. Orchid, 29 years of age, was one of Harvey's 3 official apprentices. As the first student who studied under Harvey, she was considered Roxanne's senior. Currently, she was the executive manager of GK Group's operations in Epi. She had flown into Horrington from Darton to take over the company's Aplathian operations. The company was extremely disappointed with Roxanne's performance so far, especially after learning that she had established Flora Verba Group, whose share price had skyrocketed since then. As a result, the company's board of directors decided to remove her from all her positions. Meanwhile, Orchid kept her arrival from Roxanne so that she could catch the latter off guard and find all the evidence of wrongdoing required by the company. Soon, the huge management team arrived at the research institute unannounced. Even though Colby had never seen Orchid before, he could tell from the garden violet pin worn on their collars that they were from the company's Epian headquarters. With a group of burly men leading the way, Orchid barged into the building with her entourage. The first thing they did was locked the doors to the research institute's finance department. Thereafter, they quickly sealed the general manager's office and changed all the locks to the data rooms at the institute. Shocked by their brazen actions, Peregrine constantly demanded to know who they were. Just as someone wanted to call the police, Colby stopped him and explained, "Everyone, please cooperate with them. They are part of the research institute's senior management, and they are authorized to do this." Thereafter, Colby nodded at Orchid. Eking out a slight smile, Orchid said to Colby, "I remember you. You almost joined the company's senior management before coming to Chania with Roxanne." "That's right. I remember you too. From the way you stormed in here, I can tell that you're carrying out the orders of the senior management. That's why I have no right to stop you." Despite his words, Colby had already called Roxanne's phone discreetly. She was constantly asking him what was going on but didn't get an answer until she heard the conversation between Colby and Orchid. She ended the call with a frown before ordering the butler to prepare her ride to the research institute. Public outrage upon seeing everything was going smoothly, Orchid gave orders to her subordinates. "Investigate all the incoming and outgoing accounts for this year and compile a list of all the technology patents related to the new medicine." All her subordinates sprang into action immediately. Soon, all the laboratories in the research institute stopped operating. The technical personnel came out, puzzled by everything that was happening. Colby explained to Peregrine about the ownership structure of the research institute and that Roxanne was not the sole proprietor. However, Peregrine retorted, "Colby, I'm not well versed in all this professional jargon. But tell me if Roxanne was responsible for establishing the research institute and subsequent research and development, as well as all the profit-making operations." Colby kept mum and nodded in acknowledgement. Despite being a subsidiary of GK Group, the Research Institute did not depend on any significant financial support from its parent company. Most, it only requested a small amount of money as the initial startup capital. Every subsequent expansion of the business was carried out at Roxanne's risk and expense. Furthermore, she would always report each expansion plan to the board of directors to obtain their approval before executing them. When Roxanne established Flora Verbal Group, many members of the board even supported her in exploring profit-making options independently because they believed they did not have what it took to retain such a talented individual. "Since you said Roxanne has single-handedly established the Research Institute, why should the parent company steal the credit? And that Ms. Downey is just being pushy." A stern expression crossed Peregrine's face. Since he uttered those words right outside the general manager's office, it was natural that Orchid could hear him. As her expression darkened, she raised her brows. "I know who this old Mr. Lomax is because my mentor told me about him. My mentor, Harvey Lambert, built GK Group from scratch with a group of investors. Roxanne has been working under GK Group and has not left the organization. Therefore, all her business activities essentially represent the company. Stop beating around the bush. You have no right to take any action since Roxanne is not here yet," Peregrine uttered in frustration while frowning. Before Orchid could react, Peregrine waved his hand and gestured for technicians who had worked with him for years to barge into the general manager's office. They immediately surrounded Orchid's subordinates and warned, "Put down all the materials. You're not allowed to touch anything since Ms. Jarvis is not here." Another technician chimed in, "Yet. I don't care which parent company you're from. In this research institute, we only listen to Roxanne Jarvis. And we'll protect all the materials and documents in the departments of finance as well research and development at all costs. Let's report these people to the cops first. They're acting like bandits, grabbing things without our permission. It's outrageous." The sudden public outrage left Orchid and her subordinates stunned. They became even more petrified when more and more of Peregrine's men flocked into the office. Everyone turned their attention to Orchid, eagerly waiting for her instruction. Initially, Colby wanted to wait for Lucian to intervene once Roxanne became aware of the situation. He believed they would be able to stop Orchid, a new member of the senior management team who seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. He was taken aback when Peregrine demonstrated his influence on the spot. He truly deserves all the respect in the world. Giving in to Peregrine's pressure, Orchid's subordinates quickly returned the documents they had opened. Some of them who were trying to copy information in their external hard drives also had their devices snatched away. Peregrine walked up to Orchid and said indifferently, "I'm sorry. You cannot touch anything until Roxanne arrives. If you persist, I'll ensure you and the 30 to 40 men you brought here won't be able to leave the research institute." Orchid was completely struck dumb. She did not think that Roxanne's subordinates would dare to interfere with the headquarters arrangements. It doesn't seem to fit with Roxanne's management style. 3 years ago, Roxanne also led a highly professional research institute in Epi. "You are too kind." Meanwhile, as Caden began to accelerate the car speed, Roxanne told him to slow down, as she was not in a hurry. Lucian, seated beside Roxanne, looked away from his phone and spoke nonchalantly. "Orchid seems to have a habit of choosing the perfect time to make her moves. Last time, when your research institute in Epi was doing well, she swooped in as the new management and took all the credit for its success." A corner of her lips quirked up. She responded with a wry smile and responded, "Yet. The same old trick. Why don't you fight back?" Lucian wondered. Roxanne's eyes darkened as she replied, "I wouldn't have been able to build a team to achieve my goals without her help. She leveraged all her connections in Darton and brought in significant investments, which gave me a chance to realize my dream. Furthermore, she has helped me during difficult times. There was a time when I had limited income after giving birth to Archie and Benny. It was she who provided me with financial assistance." That was why Roxanne did not intend to fight back. Anyway, Roxanne always managed to produce high-quality medicines and sell them at low prices before the takeover, ensuring that many patients could benefit from them. This time, she simply did not anticipate Orchid's swift action. She did not expect Orchid would come in and seize the management rights in just a year. Though Harvey was the key figure of GK Group, Orchid wielded significant power over investments and financial decisions within the company. After listening to her story, Lucian shook his head. "You're still too kind. In any case, you established the team and led them to achieve new heights, so you deserve a fair share for your contributions. At that time, there was no obstruction when the headquarters wanted to regain full control of the research institute. Orchid is just treating you as a money-making tool. She's aware of your ability, yet she doesn't give you the compensation you deserve. That's just too much. Roxanne nodded. She agreed with what her husband said. However, as long as GK Group still carried her mentor's name, she could not betray him. After arriving at the research institute, Lucian carefully helped her out of the car before walking together to the lobby. They heard a commotion and turned toward the source of the noise. It was then they saw hundreds of employees of the research institute gathering in front of the building, blocking Orchid and her team. Orchid's subordinates all had complicated expressions on their faces. While some looked panicked, some looked indifferent. Of all the expressions, Orchid's was the grimmest. There was even an icy glint in her eyes. "Ms. Jarvis is here," someone exclaimed. Colby and Peregrine rushed over and walked up to Lucian and Roxanne. Before Colby could open his mouth, Peregrine, visibly agitated, interjected, "Roxanne, we can't just hand over the research institute to them so easily. It's our blood, sweat, and tears. We don't care about whatever GK Group is. We just want you to lead us." More and more employees gathered around Roxanne. Upon noticing the frustration on their faces, Roxanne waved her hands to calm them down. "Calm down, old Mr. Lomax. I didn't receive any news about this operation from the headquarters either. But this time, I'll try to work things out with Orchid." While they were in the car earlier, Lucian encouraged Roxanne to stand up for herself and claimed her rightful benefits. As more people gathered around her in support, she grew even more determined. However, just as Roxanne finished speaking, Orchid strode over, stood before her, and gave her an icy glare. "Both parties satisfied? What do you mean by that, Roxanne?" Orchid scowled. Suddenly, she noticed Lucian and was startled. This is, after all, Lucian had a presence that no one could ignore. Even though Orchid often attended high-class events and thus had witnessed plenty of prominent figures before, she still couldn't help but marvel at his elegance. When she saw Lucian standing so close next to Roxanne, her heart was filled with disbelief. "He's my husband, Lucian Farwell," replied Roxanne plainly. Orchid's eyes were filled with shock. "So, the news I heard in Darton is true. Roxanne did remarry her ex-husband. I also heard her ex was a mogul, but I didn't expect him to be this handsome." Envy flooded her heart as usual. Why is Roxanne constantly blessed by fate? In terms of medical skills, she's better than me. Among Mr. Lambert's 3 students, only she learned the fastest and understood the most. Even he praised her for surpassing him in acupuncture. When it comes to research and development of techniques, she's always one step quicker than everyone else. Each time she attempted something risky, it would pay off fabulously for her. Now, I learned that she has a husband that anyone would be jealous of. How infuriating! Greetings, Mr. Farwell. I'm Roxanne Sr., Orchid Downey. Politely, Orchid stretched her hand toward him to shake his. However, Lucian nodded coldly and reluctantly. "Nice to meet you, Ms. Downey." It was evident he didn't like her much. Awkwardness flashed past her face before she turned to Roxanne with knitted eyebrows and questioned, "What's going on with this situation today? You have some explaining to do." It was taboo for a chief to disobey the company's orders with their employees, regardless of what company they belonged to. Upon sensing Orchid's intention to corner her, Roxanne changed her demeanor and replied slowly, "I'm sorry, but you didn't tell me you were coming. So, it wasn't the Research Institute staff members' fault for not recognizing you all. Besides, you would have tried to investigate the information immediately. An act like that would have caused an uproar in other companies." A gloomy expression was set on Orchid's countenance. "I can't believe she's arguing with me, even though she's usually obedient." Then she spoke confidently. "The company and our mentor sent me to conduct this surprise investigation. Therefore, you obviously wouldn't have been notified of this beforehand. Please announce to everyone that my team will helm the Research Institute from now on. Mr. Lambert has always been Roxanne's weakness. She should obey me now that I've brought him up." However, she was incorrect in her assessment again. Roxanne turned to Lucian, saw the look of encouragement in his eyes, and replied, "I'm sorry, Orchid, but I can't execute the company's order. There are still many things that haven't been discussed clearly yet. I won't hand over the Research Institute until then." Disbelief colored Orchid's countenance. She gritted her teeth and questioned, "Are you planning to ignore Mr. Lambert's order?" Firmly, Roxanne responded, "Perhaps. We should discuss this in more detail. If we can satisfy both parties, I'll cooperate." Discussion. Even though it has only been a year since we met each other, I can tell Roxanne has undergone massive changes. Did she become courageous because she renewed her relationship with her ex? Also, I should have thought about Farwell Group when she mentioned her husband's name was Lucian Farwell. Now I remember who he is. He's currently the #1 businessman in the country. Even though he never showed up on the ranking of the wealthiest men in the country, everyone knew the throne belonged to him. Even major corporations and bigwigs in Epi had to respect him. I'm equally shocked and envious of Roxanne. How can she be this lucky? She doesn't deserve it. I refuse to yield to her." Stifling her rage, Orchid demanded firmly, "I don't think there's much to discuss. If you truly plan to oppose Mr. Lambert's arrangement, then there's nothing else I can say. Leave this place with your people now." She thought that would be enough to scare Roxanne away. Instead, Roxanne replied calmly, "I'm not the only person involved in this matter. Thus, I will hold my ground until the end. If you don't want to have any discussions, then that's for the best. Please leave now. I won't send you out. I'm not doing this just for myself. I need to consider Colby's, old Mr. Lomax's, and others' futures, too. If I hand over the Research Institute to Orchid, she'll remove anyone who opposes her." Orchid's expression froze when she heard that. Gritting her teeth, she squeezed her words out in a frigid tone. "It seems like you no longer respect Mr. Lambert. I'll explain the situation to him." Roxanne then ignored Orchid, turned to Colby and Peregrine, and nodded. Basically, she was telling them to return to the Research Institute and pay no mind to the visitors. It was Orchid's turn to suffer. Originally, she planned to rid of the existing managerial team. She didn't expect to face such fierce resistance. "If I give up now, I'll embarrass myself. I can't help but regret not accepting Roxanne's proposal. I should have listened to what conditions she had. If they weren't too extreme, I could have agreed to them. From the corner of her eye, she saw Lucian smirking at her, making her panic even more. Roxanne played me like a fiddle. If I return like this, no one in the company will listen to me anymore. Swallowing her pride, Orchid requested, Roxanne, wait. Perhaps we should discuss this. It's my fault for being rash. After taking a few steps away, Roxanne turned and faced Orchid composedly. Is that so? In that case, please come to my office, Orchid. We'll discuss things there. Then she approached Peregrine. Old Mr. Lomax, please ask everyone to return to their stations and continue their good work. I'll definitely negotiate an outcome that everyone will find acceptable. While Peregrine was put at ease by her promise, he still couldn't help but remind, this research institute is your sweat and blood, Roxanne. You should think more for yourself. We never worry that there'll be a crisis. After all, the reward from Flora Verba Group is enough. Every technician is grateful for you from the bottom of their hearts. Feeling touched, Roxanne nodded. Peregrine then led everyone back to their posts while Roxanne took Orchid to her office. Suddenly, Colby grabbed Lucian's arm and informed, Ms. Jarvis asked me to take care of something earlier, Mr. Farwell. I need to handle it now, and I hope you can help. Without waiting for an explanation, Lucian nodded swiftly. This is extortion. Boiling hot water and preparing the coffee bean, Roxanne went through the actions leisurely after sitting in her office. Nobody else followed them into the room as Orchid sat opposite her. As the two ladies took their seats, they watched each other as frostiness appeared in Orchid's eyes. Roxanne, tell me your conditions. What do you want me to do for you to give the research institute to me? You're married into a wealthy family now. You don't need to work so hard on your career, so let's hope your conditions won't piss me off. Roxanne kept quiet, as if she didn't hear Orchid's words at all. Feeling agitated, Orchid fumed, Why? Are you fooling around with me? Don't forget that it was me who helped you when you were in Epi. Without my help, you would have to sleep on the street and beg for food. Roxanne stopped cleaning the coffee cup. She looked at Orchid and nodded. I'll always remember the kindness you've shown me. That's why I didn't hesitate to give you the other research institute. And I don't think I'll have to repeat the great profits that Research Institute brought to GK Group. Orchid was stunned. She couldn't find the words to retort. Just like Roxanne had stated, the Research Institute that she gave to Orchid previously had marketed much new medicine. These medicines contributed to nearly 1/3 of the profits earned by GK Group. So? Orchid asked. Nothing. Since you mentioned the kindness you had shown me, I told you what I did to express my gratitude in return. Even if what I did wasn't much, at least I didn't wrong you. Roxanne answered calmly. The water reached boiling point, emitting a whistling sound. Roxanne used the water to make espresso. Soon, a delicious coffee scent filled the room. She filled the cup to 80% full before motioning for Orchid to take it. Orchid, have some coffee first. The woman hesitated for a moment before reaching out to take the coffee cup. Can't read Roxanne at all. When did this calm and relaxed manner others start showing itself? Obviously, Roxanne didn't tell Orchid that Lucian taught her current behavior. Whether it was a business deal or a negotiation, drinking coffee calmly before the opponent would give them immense pressure indirectly. Let's be straightforward. What do you want? Give me a number. How much grant funds do you want? How many benefits are you trying to seek for your staff? Orchid urged anxiously, unable to withstand the pressure anymore. Roxanne knew it was time to make her next move. She spoke slowly. Yes, the research institute belongs to GK Group. But then, we've patented so many products up until now. We couldn't return them just like that. After all, you should know that I rarely touch the funds given to me by GK Group since the day the research institute was founded. What do you mean? Are you saying you want to make these patented formulas yours? Orchid immediately put the coffee cup on the table, nearly jumping out of her seat. Then, her expression, which had just eased up moments ago, flashed with anger. No way! I'll never agree to that. These patented formulas are precious to GK Group. Why don't you be straight with me? How much money do you need? Roxanne didn't react, ignoring Orchid's outburst. Instead, she stated, "All right. Here's my requirement. We have 13 patented products. We can only transfer 4 of them to GK Group directly. The fate of the rest has to be decided by the high-level management of the Research Institute, and we have to find a way to enter a cooperation sharing model with GK Group." Orchid thought her ears were playing tricks on her. It took her a few seconds to understand what Roxanne was saying. Instantly, anger filled her as she jumped up from the seat. No way! I'll never say yes to that condition. This is not a discussion. You are merely trying to extort me. Darling got more capable. Roxanne sneered when she heard the word extort. The technical personnel and I spent countless days and nights, not eating or sleeping, to achieve those results. What does she mean that I'm trying to extort her? Even though she was disappointed by Orchid's reaction, Roxanne knew how the latter reacted was only average and nothing to be surprised about. Orchid, please give it some consideration. That's the best option I can think of. I won't back down even if you ask Mr. Lambert to advise me. With that, Roxanne continued drinking her coffee in a relaxed manner. Listen here, Roxanne. I'll never agree with the suggestion you gave. Never. If you insist on being stubborn, then go on. After all, if we follow the procedure strictly, all of you will have to leave the Research Institute sooner or later. Orchid's tone was vicious, hoping her remarks would change Roxanne's mind. However, no matter what she said, Roxanne was calm and unbothered. Roxanne's reaction hurt Orchid's pride significantly, causing her to lose her rationality slowly. Just then, Lucian called out from outside the door, "Darling, I'm back." Orchid seethed with rage, jealous of how a successful businessman like Lucian would treat Roxanne with so much tenderness. Lucian walked in, his eyes shifting from the frustrated Orchid to the calm Roxanne, knowing that the negotiation might have fallen through. He smiled at Roxanne. "I've dealt with everything." Roxanne nodded, getting Lucian's hidden message. Then, she said to Orchid faintly, "Orchid, you are right. If we follow the procedure, the Research Institute belongs to GK Group." "Okay. I've thought it through. I'll hand the Research Institute to you after this." Orchid thought she was hallucinating. She stared at Roxanne warily, questioning, "What tricks do you have, up your sleeves?" "Tricks? You're the master in that. You always plant a whole team in the research institute in the most surprising way. If old Mr. Lomax and the rest cooperated with you this time, you would have taken over those patented formulas." A smirk appeared on Roxanne's face. "Have nothing to fear now that Lucian has settled everything for me. What's the matter? You tried to convince me to hand over the research institute with multiple reasons just now. Now that I want to hand it over, you're hesitating." Orchid had her doubts. But she nodded her head after a few moments of pondering. "All right. I was only waiting for you to say yes. Anyways, I don't believe there's any way you could mess with me." After they settled things with Orchid, Roxanne and Lucian strolled out from the general manager's office leisurely. Colby was waiting for them at the research institute's entrance. Facing Roxanne, he reported, "As instructed by you, I've temporarily transferred the 9 patented formulas to a company arranged by Mr. Farwell. The seal is still with me. Do I need to return it to them?" Roxanne felt relieved upon hearing Colby's remarks. Using the time difference as an advantage, Roxanne stalled for time by asking to negotiate with Orchid. That way, Lucian and Colby would have enough time to transfer the patents. She knew all too well that she had nothing to discuss or negotiate with the money-minded Orchid ultimately. "It's not a big deal to return them the seal and the research institute because we can purchase those scientific research equipment any time. Colby, please inform old Mr. Lomax that he should play along with everything Orchid says and get all the benefits he should get. Then, they can resign individually and head to work at the research institute owned by Flora Verba Group." Colby nodded his head, turning around and walking into the research institute. A smile crept into Lucian's face when he witnessed how swift and decisive Roxanne was when dealing with Orchid and GK Group. "I would do the same thing, too, if I were in her shoes. Your business skills are getting better and better, darling." Lucian caressed Roxanne's head with his huge hand. Roxanne smiled happily. "Of course. I've been learning all this while. I am foolish." Meanwhile, at the manager's office, Orchid was deep in thought. Suddenly, she thought of some crucial details, panicking. The woman immediately got her subordinates to delve into the research institute's patented formulas. In the end, the result came back. There were only 4 patented formulas left. Moreover, these 4 patented formulas had been given to authorized patent agents, a way Roxanne had used to earn enough cash flow. "This means I got myself a pretty much useless research institute." A furious Orchid scolded her subordinates loudly. "What a bunch of losers! I should have gotten our hands on the patented formulas right away. Now it's all gone." These so-called high-level management teams were simply a group of losers to her now. She trembled angrily while her subordinates remained silent, not daring to talk back. At that precise moment, Colby knocked on the door. The door was actually ajar. He had witnessed everything that went down in the room because he stood outside, unwilling to interrupt, for he wanted to see more of their despair. But then, he decided to get things done. Colby walked over to Orchid respectfully. "Ms. Downey, this is the resignation letter of the Research Institute's person in charge, Ms. Jarvis, and here's my resignation letter." I'm honored to work with GK Group before this. However, due to some health concerns, I can no longer work competently in my position, so I hope you will approve my resignation." Colby announced his high-sounding justification for leaving the company. Orchid's gaze shifted to the 2 resignation letters, gritting her teeth. She was so angered that her heart thumped wildly. "Very well. I approved your resignation." She peered at Colby with disgust, waving her hands to dismiss him. Colby was not ignorant enough to linger. He put the company seal in front of Orchid before leaving. "Roxanne, you're quite something. It looks like I was foolish enough to believe you." Colby closed the door as he stepped out of the room. Unfortunately, Orchid's raging, thunderous words boomed through the door that one could even hear her from far away. It was dusk when the newly resigned Colby arrived at the Flora Verba Group CEO's office to apply for his new job. During that period, James listened to Colby recounting everything that went down earlier. He couldn't help but cheer for Roxanne's tactic of pulling the rug from underneath Orchid and attacking her where she least expected. "That's why I can only work for you from today onward. Please take good care of me, Mr. Lon." Colby returned to Flora Verba Group first to prepare for the reopening of the research institute by the company. That way, when Peregrine showed up for work with the rest of the technical personnel, they would have a familiar face to turn to. "Please don't be so courteous with me, Colby. You're an exceptionally talented man with excellent technical skills and fantastic business operation ability. I would have given you this position even if I didn't owe Roxanne anything, to begin with," James said seriously. After all, he had a family business to inherit. "I'll follow your arrangements, Mr. Lon." Colby smiled. "Okay. Here's the deal. You are the vice president of Flora Verba Group from today onward. You will need to help me out, okay? Don't just focus on the matters related to the research institute only." Thrilled, James took the chance to share his burden with Colby. His announcement took Colby by surprise. Colby had never expected himself to be given such a high position. He thought he would only be a supervisor after creating the research department. Mr. Lon, do you want to think this through? Or maybe you should inform Ms. Jarvis first." Colby was flattered beyond words. James shook his head, waving his hands dismissively. "Even though she is the chairman, I have the right to decide. It's a yes from me, so don't refuse any more, okay? Flora Verba Group will have our independent research institute soon. Once the news gets released, our company shares will go off the charts. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.